All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. This, again, is the Q&A community conversation portion of this. Thanks so much for coming. Again, I'm Boddye, your Occoquan District Supervisor. Been proudly serving you since 2020. And really wanted to thank you again for coming out tonight. I know that there's a lot of other things you could be doing on what's one of the best weather nights of the past few weeks of the summer. So definitely appreciate you spending your evening with us talking about this project, which is obviously of a lot of community interest. We do have folks from the applicant, the developer who are present here. We have consultants that are also on hand to answer your more technical questions. Myself and county staff is here as well. We have our planning director, Ms. Tanya Washington, and we have Alice Venegas from the planning department as well. We're gonna be here mostly in listen mode because we wanna hear as much feedback from you all as possible on the outcomes you wanna see with this project, what your concerns are, what you like, what you don't like, and really how we can move forward in a really productive way so we understand that, folks want to see our county grow in a responsible way. And I know that not everyone always going to agree on what exactly that looks like, existing residents, new residents, what have you, but knowing that we can move forward together and engage in community in a way that we're able to get your feedback and help make improvements to make this project the best it can be. So before we get started though, if you notice over here, we have our banner for our office. I would imagine that not all of you are currently signed up for my newsletter. So there's a QR code on there to sign up for my email newsletter. And sir, yes.
I'm not usually quiet. We've already met with the contractors and the developers a couple weeks ago, where we shared for a couple hours all our views in depth. Everybody shared their views, and we had a lot more people attend that meeting. Were you ever given the meeting minutes or that information? Because we're going to start back in square one, it seems like.
So I was aware of that meeting, and those notes will be shared with me. I don't have the full rundown yet, but they will be shared with me.
Nothing on you.
Yeah, they will be. That's all. They've always been the plan of, and I can understand why you would feel that it's starting from square one to have this meeting, but we also know there are folks that are here that weren't part of that conversation. I know that there are constituents that have signed up that are going to watch the video. This is recorded, by the way. We're going to watch the video after this that weren't part of that conversation. And so we believe in my office, and I know the planning department believes this too, and the developer, that you can't over-engage and over-communicate with folks. So we would much rather have multiple touch points so people feel like they've had multiple ways and multiple time to not only talk to them, but talk to me as your supervisor. Then there'll only be like a one-off, and someone who may have missed that opportunity didn't get a chance to get heard from and what have you. So appreciate
Sorry
it.
again, one more thing.
Yep.
The reason you don't have as many people as you had is because people they're feeling disheartened, unheard, not represented, like we have no voice. We've been to these meetings multiple times where our community speaks out about the issues at hand, and we get nothing in return. A lot of people didn't show up tonight because we've gone before and spoke multiple times about the issues ranging from safety. I know everybody's going to talk about this, but here we sit again, and I've heard nothing back about any of these meetings, of anything that we've brought up, to include the multiple meetings we had on the other expansion you had, which all I got back was, have a good day. So I'm just telling you, that's why there's no representation here compared to the other day. So I'll leave it there.
Clarifying question, what other expansion are you talking about, sir?
I'm not gonna mention there was another expansion where we voiced our opinions about the same issues, about schools, safety, water, on. And you know what we got back? Nothing. I got nothing in return, why the decision was made. And then there's another expansion coming up where you guys are gonna vote on another expansion where a lot of people told me not showing up because why? It's just already approved. So that's a fact. And I'm just a voice. I'm supposed to be home sitting down watching TV, and I was called and told to show up by many people. So
Well,
I don't wanna jump over
and I haven't
everybody
heard
else.
anything yet, so I would like them to continue so I can hear what's going on. And I would ask you some questions later if you'd like.
Sure. And Mike, we could have some folks from the representative speak to the changes that have been made since the initial application to show that folks have been responsive to some of the feedback you've already given.
Sure. So
I don't want to start your meeting off on my notes.
No, you're fine. So with the Lost Creek community, we actually did take a lot of the feedback, and what you'll see today is changes because of the feedback, moving, homes around. I've shared with Bob recently the most recent proposal. We've also looked at figuring out traffic better. So we're thinking about how do we fix the traffic issue, because as we heard from you all, that's a major concern. But I think you'll see today that the proposal has changed quite significantly since you all looked at it when we met, because of the concerns that we heard from the Lost Creek and some of the other community engagements that we've had. So if you just allow us to kind of walk through.
We did that. But
Oh,
I guess
okay.
the other thing, just from a proposal perspective, is we are still in the process of hearing from the community and making changes. So county staff, as an agency, they all reviewed, sorry, I know you all are looking at me. County staff, as an agency, they all reviewed our applications. Those comments got dispersed to agencies. Those comments were received back. Our team has those comments. So our goal is to look at what county staff has said that they want as revisions, hear from the community, and incorporate any additional changes. So while you feel like we haven't made a lot of changes, we have, but we also haven't finished making changes. And so we are still in the process of taking comments and feedback to continue to make revisions to the plan before it goes back into the county for a second submission.
Sorry, sir?
Sir, yeah.
You talked about communications?
Yes.
So in the future, we all gave our email addresses last meeting. Got no emails about this, anything about, hey guys, have a great day, we're working on this. That would have kept us pretty calm and not coming to
that's
the
on
meeting.
us.
That kept us from coming to this meeting with a different attitude, or
And-
not showing up.
And that's fair, that is fair input, and moving forward, we will let you all know. We heard you, we haven't done anything with it yet. We have not resubmitted to the county. I appreciate that feedback, and we'll make sure that we continue to communicate with you all better in the future after those meetings.
And that's a great point, sir, and I appreciate that, because a lot of times you have me as your supervisor, you have folks from the applicant, you have their representatives. We live in this world all the time. We know how the process, we know the steps along the way, and folks here may not. So from our perspective, to Janelle's point, we haven't even gone back to the county yet to make those changes and even hear back from the county, because that's there's a bunch of people that help make the sausage that are these projects, right? There's a developer, there's my feedback as a supervisor, there's you all as a community, but there's also county staff. So throughout this process, county staff will probably make their own recommendations on things that will be changed as well. And because we're not even in the phase yet where that has happened, there isn't, in our opinion, a lot to communicate yet. But your point is well taken of even just letting people know, hey, we heard you, this is where we are in the process, and yes, we are working on, we're being responsive to your comments. I think that's good feedback to have, so I appreciate you.
And your community members that didn't show up tonight because they were feeling like they weren't heard, we're happy to have another meeting with them just to tell them where we are in the process as well, if you all think that would be helpful.
Well, speaking from the community, because I'm loud and I talk to everybody, it's a Vermont thing. There's a lot of people who are, already looking to sell their homes. That's sad. And a lot of people are already looking. I have soldiers who are retiring after 30 years, and now they're moving out, they're moving down. And I'm just telling you the facts from the lowest level. Good leaders always know what's happening at the lowest level. And everybody I talk to is planning on moving out because of traffic. On Fridays, and I'm sorry I'm taking over the meeting, my daughter will not leave the house on Fridays and take a left or a right. Sir, you'd have to come to my house and I'll serve you coffee. Then we'll leave on Fridays and try to get out of our neighborhood. You can't. I have to jump out, and I'm sorry, this is why. And this is what the people feel, that nothing's heard. We were told that we were gonna be number one, that we were not gonna be, you told us when we turned left out of there that we were gonna be priority. No, we're not. I got videos of that, we turned the videos in. We just keep talking and talking, and we're not heard. Nice to meet you, sir. I mean, that is what, we don't have a leader, we do have a leader, but this is what everybody's talking about, moving. I don't wanna move. I retired out of the United States Army and out of federal government after 39.5 years to stay here forever. But guess what's happening? All these decisions, lack of communications, and safety. I mean, I'm gonna have grandkids who can't get out of the neighborhood. I talked to everybody, took their notes, and leave it there, and I can keep talking on. As long as you want me, I can keep talking, bring it up good.
Sure, well, I did see a hand, sir.
Sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Boddye, could I just suggest the speakers introduce who they are, because I have no idea who's staff, whose proposal, who's bringing in environmental representation. I think that would help us. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Mr. Lano.
Absolutely. My name is Jonelle Cameron. I am with Walsh, Colucci, Lubelai, and Walsh. I am a land use attorney. I am representing JR Real Estate. So with me from JR Real Estate, I have Safe,
I'm the managing partner of JR.
Adam, Mohammed, Mustafa, Reese is hiding somewhere in the back. And then we also have our traffic consultants over here in this corner, and we have our environmental consultants that are hiding over there in that corner, and our civil team behind you in the yellow and that over here. So, and then we have Brian Crater, also with Walsh Colucci, who's a land use attorney. So thank you for reminding us to introduce ourselves.
And on the topic of transportation and traffic, because I think that's been talked about by a lot of folks, both at boards and just now, did we want to have the traffic consultant sort of address some of the concerns about traffic?
Sure, I think before one of the things we did do, just because we heard Lost Creek, was we asked our traffic consultants to go do Friday counts. So we actually wanted to do that, and then our team actually went on Friday, tried to come out of Lost Creek at the times that you talked about, because we wanted to actually see what the neighborhood was dealing with. But we actually did count for the Friday traffic at Lost Creek, at the mosque's entrance, the new traffic light at
Queen Chapel.
Queen's Chapel, as well as Galveston, and all the way down to Parkway. So we actually took traffic counts with camera during that peak period to figure out, what is the way that we try to figure this traffic issue out, because we heard you all. But I want to invite Les up here to kind of speak to that, if that's okay.
Thanks, Safe. Les Atkins, I'm with Galloway, traffic engineer on this project. So briefly touch upon that came out of that meeting with Lost Creek. We understood that was the issue. So as part of the revision of our application, again, we submitted our first traffic study in December of 2023. There?
Get over this mic.
There you go. My voice is loud, yours is as loud as mine.
Sorry about that. Better?
Yes.
So we're, like with the plan, we're in the process of updating that traffic study to, again, look at Friday more holistically. Some other applications have come online since this one has been submitted, so we're, again, revising that, looking at other solutions that weren't previously proposed with the first submission of the application on how we can improve traffic and safety here. So again, just like with the plan, it's an iterative process. We've done one lap, we took in comments, we're revising it to address it. We're willing to take any and all comments you have now so that that's incorporated with our next submission. We mentioned here's the locations we were looking at with our previous traffic study. Again, it's going to be coming back in. That will go to county staff as well as VDOT staff. VDOT maintains all these roads out here, so they have a lot of input in how we improve these. So that's forthcoming. One passes down, we're revising per staff, VDOT, community, supervisor comments. We'll come back in with another submission, and of course, always meet with you all and identify any issues that you see beyond that and how we can help.
As part of our goal, we were trying to figure out how to take as much traffic off of Hoadly and queue it elsewhere for the mosque's peak hour. That's sort of the way that we're approaching this, because we know that that's causing backups all up and down Hoadly, from the Parkway to Lost Creek, a little bit further down to get to the flagship and all that, right? So that's how we sort of thought about this and why we wanted to run traffic counts during their peak period. Try to understand how can we figure out a way to get that traffic basically queued up off of Hoadly Road within our own development. So the way that we're routing traffic in the development is we are trying to figure out a way with the mosque to route their traffic through our development on a public road, rather than having it queue on Hoadly Road, which is what is causing the issue. So this is one of the iterations that we've been discussing. Les and the team have thought about how do we sort of take their traffic and to disperse it in different locations rather than having them jam at a specific. Because what happens right now on Friday is you've got the police out there, they basically have everyone come out of that exit, they make that U-turn, and then essentially you got Hoadly Road kind of jammed on both sides as people wait. And then the Lost Creek neighborhood, you're right, I saw it. The police don't let you all out because we tried it, unfortunately. So what we're thinking about is how do we figure out another way, maybe further down, to even solve some of the Lost Creek issue. I just spoke, Bob sent a couple of emails, about whether a traffic light would be here, and that's a VDOT issue, and VDOT would likely not allow for a traffic light there because of the amount of traffic. But what we're thinking is we're trying to figure out extra exits for the mosque, even adding an extra lane in our development on our public road, so that we would essentially route their traffic further down to Galveston rather than having it all jammed in this one location and creating that jam right there. And that way, sort of, and this, by the way, this anticipates the mosque's full build out. So this is anticipating their SUP that was passed. And you can see we've overlaid their full build out, we've overlaid their full parking lot. We've actually also added a parking lot that's overflow on our site to address the traffic issue, because we know that this has been the community concern. So we would essentially route their top traffic out through here and then out to Galveston. And we're in discussions right now with these owners to try to purchase their property to widen Galveston as part of that. That's part of our approach to trying to figure this out. But there's a brother and sister here, one of them is very ill, so we've been having talks with them about figuring that piece out. But essentially, we've added an extra lane that could be converted one way or another on Fridays, where police could essentially add a lane in or add a lane out to route mosque traffic more effectively. So this is just one of our approaches as we've been thinking about this, because of what we heard from you all when we met with the Lost Creek community.
And if I could, before we take some more, to talk about traffic and transportation a little bit more, a couple things on the county side that we've been looking at is, one, as Saif mentioned, the mosque folks also have vested interest in not just being stuck on Queen Chapel, right? So they see it as a global issue as well, so that's why they've been working with them on it. But two, more importantly, to safety, because I know some folks have also mentioned traffic safety. Every month my office meets with transportation staff, and one thing we've been talking to them about over the past few months, going farther back to the beginning of the year, is looking at not only these projects, but about the global growth of housing in this part of the county, and how frankly Hoadly Road was not contemplated to be, let's just say, a safe road, right? It was supposed to be made to be a throughput road from Parkway to 234, and not a lot of contemplation about bike and pedestrian safety, or even frankly motorist safety as folks begin to sort of traverse it. So we do have a traffic safety study being done on the Hoadly corridor, and we're also linking it to a much larger global county-wide Safe Streets for All study to look at some of the issues that we've talked about. Because I know that folks have talked about accidents on Hoadly Road before, people trying to cross the road, what have you, at different times. People who try to bike and play Frogger on it. So there's a lot of safety issues there on it that we've been looking at, as well as not just because of these projects, but because of long-standing global issues with Hoadly Road that frankly need to be addressed long before now.
If I may ask a question.
Well, there was Bob had a question.
Yeah.
What is your Lost Creek village?
So one of the ideas we had for Lost Creek, do we have that? We have that. Can we grab that? Do we have it on the slide? Can we grab the poster? So one of the ideas we had for Lost Creek, Bob, was essentially there's space in the median just further down that we would create a turnaround just past Lost Creek, so that when you're trying to turn left, you're not trying to navigate traffic on both sides. You would make a right turn and then sort of come back and make a U-turn. And we think that would essentially ease some of that, but what we would also do is reroute some of the mosque traffic away from that U-turn area where it's causing the major issue at Lost Street. So, again, this is just an idea, right? So we're
There's
just,
a better idea that you didn't mention.
what's that?
Opening up the back door, going on the Princeton Parkway, remember? That was something we brought up.
Well,
I have not told why.
VDOT won't allow us to do that. So again, one of the ideas would be to just sort of, you make that right turn onto Hoadly from Lost Creek, and then we would create like a U-turn movement over a little bit further, right before you get to the, was it the flagship that's down there? What's the? Further down.
That's pretty dangerous with that
Yeah.
speed
Yeah,
limit.
So,
Really?
no, well, so we would give you enough, I mean, so this is how much, what's the distance on that?
I don't live there, I live further down, but I'm telling you, people fly.
Yeah, we,
That's exactly the issue, because now you have to make
Yeah.
people
it
flying this
is.
way, people flying this way.
Yeah.
This at least gives you the opportunity to split it into two movements. So this you're only focused
It's on
on
the screen.
finding an opportunity to get in here,
It's on the
now
screen.
you're only focused on that.
Right.
Obviously, it's not traffic signal, but it was this. This also keeps this open for when it's not Friday midday or it's the middle of the night and someone wants to get out. You don't have to do this, you have to do it. Also, Webster's Way people, they can still make way out. This is just a first pass and had an idea, open
You
it.
know, the bottom line to all this is you're trying to still route all this circuitous, do all this circuitous routing all through the backwoods of the Galveston and all that on the same side of Hoadly Road. They still have to come out to Hoadly to leave. And a lot of them live across the street. I know, I've seen the traffic go by. Aside from that though, moving it all around through this back neighborhood area does not fix the problem. It's just like the mouse that keeps going around the wheel and around the wheel. You still gotta come out the same place, which is Hoadly Road.
well, again, so it's taking the queuing off of Hoadly, right? Because right now what happens is you get a lot of people queued on Hoadly, creates a backup. You got the police stopping traffic, and that creates the backup. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take people off of Hoadly to do that. And that's how you reduce the backups, that's how you reduce the queuing on Hoadly, so that you don't have, the incidences of people sort of just stop right here trying to get into the mosque or trying to get in somewhere else.
But that's only until you bring your project in that you're anticipating bringing in with approximately 400 homes
So
there.
we-
And then what happens to all Hoadly Road again?
So our traffic impact analysis has to take into account the full mosque build out, has to take into account our full build out, and then has to take into account Hoadly growth, regardless of that, at 2%, 2%?
Yeah,
2%.
extra traffic.
And
go
what
down
about the
2029.
Maple Grove that's supposed to be going down there near one,
So
like
they
that?
would have to take into account, so what happens is the way that it works with VDOT is when a traffic impact analysis is submitted, they have to take into account everything I just mentioned plus us. So whichever traffic impact went in first, the next one has to take into account all of the impacts that came before that and actually figure out how to mitigate it.
But how can you mitigate it when the mosque expansion has not been built, so you don't know how many children are gonna go to the school that's already been approved, come to the medical facility, which has still not been approved. And so there are so many question marks there, how you can anticipate how many children will be at that school, how many people will be at the medical facility.
This is exactly what we're talking about listening to what we said. Last time I said, and I put it in very simplistic terms, if you have a rate, that road's rated F rating. We had an accident the other day that took down the brand new light.
And to
Kill somebody, okay? So you're rated F already. That's awesome. You got a mainframe, okay? You got 5,000 customers on the mainframe. And now you say I want 5,000 more customers on this mainframe that's maxed out. What are you gonna do? Nothing. You can't do nothing. So our road is already maxed out. It's an F. We're gonna bring 3,000 more drivers a day. That's only on these two expansion projects. Where are you? Okay, they're gonna pick where they wanna drive, number one. They're not gonna pick where you want them to drive, they're gonna pick where they wanna drive. And you got 2,500 more people trying to leave in the morning, go to work, trying to come home. I'm sorry, it's logic, guys, and we already talked about this. You can't blow smoke up a yoo-hoo and tell me that we're in F, we're gonna get 2,500 more people, and you're not gonna add more lanes or do anything. That's it. You need to have an answer that answers that question. Not rerouting onto the same roads, not rerouting. And I gave you an example, and I haven't been told. I'm an Army guy. Tell me what's the facts. Why can't we go out the back door like we should be?
So if I could address that more directly.
Okay, that's just something.
So VDOT manages the roads, and we would need VDOT's blessing to make another punch through onto the parkway. And if they don't allow it, then we
We hold
can't.
the project, we hold the project until
We
that
cannot
we get
do
their
that.
approval, and then we move forward.
Whether VDOT approves it or not, we cannot do that, and I'll tell you why, because back in the late 1980s, when all this, the Prince William Parkway alignment was being done, I worked on that project with several other people. And the way that that was set up, it was voted on, and that there was to be no building and no cut-throughs from, the intersection right here, all the way down to where it meets up with, Yates Ford at the other end. There would be no cut-throughs taken to either side. The people voted on it that way, and to do anything other than that, it's gonna be a misappropriation of funds, and I can tell you right now, I'll be the first person down that state office raising my voice
Yeah,
about it.
it's a limited access highway, but there's
Something's
another
going on
question,
30
your
years.
question.
If you don't mind, can we have a presentation?
I had my hand up way before you.
Well, you minutes to ask
I
a
think it's
question.
time to talk to our control, start your very first person and go back and forth and let everybody speak the word, instead of taking these people that speak up, because none of us will be able to talk.
Sure, that's fair, so we wanna make sure people.
Use your
feel
mouth,
comfortable.
man.
So, ma'am,
Excuse me.
ma'am, yeah, ma'am,
Can I say something?
ma'am, I'm looking at you right now, please. Yeah.
Yes, some of us have not been here before. I would like to see the presentation before we go through all this, so we don't have to go through all this again, please. I'm not at a loss, I have no idea what's going on, so I would like to see the presentation and then have the discussion, not have the discussion and then see the presentation.
So ma'am, with all due respect, when we advertised this, we made sure that people knew there wasn't gonna be a presentation, since, as was said before, this has been discussed in several committee meetings, so we didn't wanna
I know,
retract.
but I didn't know about the other meetings, so this is my first time.
I'll happily walk you through after this. I'll walk you through, because all of these posters are intended to be
Okay,
the
because
front.
I know I'm not the only
So
one.
I'll happily, anyone that has questions, I will happily walk you through, every part of it. So let's do that after the question and answer.
Right.
I'll still be here, we can walk through and I'll.
And to that point, we will be sharing all the poster board and the slides that go with it after the fact, so people can have it then too. All right, I saw someone else. Martin, did you have something you wanted to say? Okay. Sir, in the yellow that spoke up, did you have something to say also?
Yes, getting to the specifics of this plan, you were talking about the traffic making a U-turn on down further past Lost Creek. Why not utilize the stoplight that's already there and have left turns there instead of letting them make a U-turn?
So you're talking about the stoplight that's here?
Right.
Well, we would do that. Can we go back to that? So we would. So this proposal anticipates having the traffic light, having traffic routed here, and then having traffic routed to Galveston. So it would utilize the stoplight here and utilize the stoplight at Galveston.
Well, that's what I mean, instead of having a U-turn altogether, just have a no U-turn at Lost Creek Court and have a left turn coming out to Mosque at that light.
Yeah, I think the U-turn we just showed was more providing an opportunity for Lost Creek to turn somewhere.
No, I know what I'm
Obviously,
saying,
our
stop
intent is
U-turns
to.
altogether at that intersection. At Lost Creek, and have them make a left turn at the
Correct.
light at the mosque.
So that's good feedback, sir. We'll have to look at that too.
But we can analyze that movement. I mean, we've done the analysis, and we'll further analyze. But what we were trying to do with the further U-turn is, if you think about, if you're coming out of Lost Creek, you've now got to look left and right? You've got cars coming down. I know, I've seen it 60 miles an hour coming down Hoadly Road. So, you're trying to manage both sides of the road as you're making it. Our thought process was, if we can give you a right turn out of Lost Creek, so during the peak hours, you're not having to wait for that left, you make a right, and then you've got another access point where you can make that U-turn
You still
out of
have
Lost
to
Creek.
wait at the U-turn for other traffic coming the opposite way.
Well, half as much though. You're not having to deal with traffic coming from the Parkway as well as traffic coming from 234. You're only having to deal with one side of the road.
I
And
realize that.
and that makes it
Right
safer.
now, the big issue is the traffic coming out of the mosque, making a U-turn.
Right.
And with the policemen out there, it's worse than not having nobody. So I'm saying, utilize that light at the mosque and have a U-turn there, and the lower exit at the mosque, have that for the south traffic only.
Right, and so I appreciate, sir, because what we'll do now is, if this goes through, we'll have two access points that will signalize. So those will be where people will filter instead of making them come out and go basically right on Hoadly Road, make that U-turn.
But if you
And,
make the people
right.
who live at Lost Creek Court go all the way down to make a U-turn, that means gas. You know
Yep.
what the price of gas is?
No. And to that point, sir, what we also do is, especially given this project, I will proactively speak to the police department about that piece of it too, because frankly, as was said, your point is well taken, sir. Certain pronouncements were made as part of the other expansion project that the police would be given priority to folks coming out of Lost Creek. If that's not happening, we need to address that.
You know, one other thing is that, you know, to solve the problem that exists right now is one thing. But then to take it a step further and solve the problem that would be forthcoming with this other project that you're anticipating on putting here is an entirely different situation.
And that's why we're trying to widen, that's why we're looking at widening Galveston.
And you can widen Galveston to 6 lanes if you want, but you still gotta come out to Hoadly to leave, and everybody's gotta stop at a light so that the people can exit. And what does that do to the rest of the traffic? It backs it up.
So we appreciate.
And right now, there are only horses living on 50 of that acre.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am. And so in the interest of time, Dalton.
Okay. I think if everyone would just listen at this conversation, it seems logical that what you're proposing is taking a fire hydrant and trying to run the water into a garden hose. Because all of these roads and the workarounds, they still come back to Hoadly Road. And its traffic is still terrible on Hoadly Road. So that is not the fix, sir. I'm talking about logic. Just think about that idea.
If I can borrow on your water analogy, what we're trying to do with this is to take it from an open spout where there's no control here and things go crazy to places where we have valves with traffic signals, where we can ease this traffic in safely to get back on. And also all these people that are here making this U-turn want to get back this way already. We're giving them a way to get this way by getting off Hoadly and coming through these new roads offsite. So it's about directing it, but also controlling it, making it safer.
And one thing I did want to mention, as Safe mentioned earlier, is we know that still, even after the expansion, there may be concerns that people have about people parking across Hoadly Road to go to the mosque. Well, given both the expansion itself, which is going to add parking spaces, and this project, you won't have that nearly as much happening because there'll be a lot more parking on that side of Hoadly Road, so you won't have as many people walking across. And to be frank, that also makes it so there'll be less police having to stop folks on Hoadly Road to allow pedestrians to cross back and forth. That's another big source of it. I've been on Hoadly Road. I've been on Bryn Forest. I've been to Lost Creek. I've seen that movement a lot, and I know that a big part of the reason why it bottlenecks and it backs up and it queues because you have people walking across Hoadly Road constantly during Fridays. Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but a lot of other people, we have about 5 minutes left, and other people need to be able to speak. Yes, sir, in the back.
You're talking about existing traffic. With this development, what about the quality of life of people? You're routing all this mouse traffic through where they're gonna be living at with all these townhomes. So you have new development, they're trying to get out. You have existing, so they're saying, wait a minute, I bought a house here, I can't get out because I got all this traffic that's being rerouted through my neighborhood. So you've got existing traffic and that. So how are you gonna address that problem? You've got now increased the traffic through Hoadly.
So that's a great question. Actually, the traffic is on the main public road that's there. All of the internal streets will not be public.
But you know where traffic goes and where traffic goes. They're gonna close that through.
So you're absolutely right, but when you're a driver, if you think about it, when you're trying to drive somewhere, you take the path of least resistance, right? And the path of least resistance is going to be that main drag that sort of goes through the development. When you calculate the time it takes to make that or make this movement, rather than sort of trying to go through up and then or into, for example, down here and then to come out onto Hoadly, it's just so many turns that you probably have a couple people do it, but it won't be the vast majority of traffic doing that. So essentially most of that traffic will be along the main strip. The intent of that main strip anyway is to be a community strip. So if you've noticed, we've got a community square along that strip anyway that has sort of like kiosks and public spaces. So it's intended to be a public area anyway along that main part of the neighborhood. Now, the rest of the neighborhood is not intended to be as such, and that's gonna be quieter with private streets that, you know, we show sort of as other parts. And then this one is also private streets in here that are much more difficult. We purposely did not make the street connection straight through, if you notice, so that you come in and then you have to kind of turn to get to the main strip. And there's a logic behind that, so that you actually create one throughput area and the rest sort of be neighborhood streets.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hummer, yeah, go for it. The revised proposal.
Put up the revised proposal, I'll be sure.
And while we're doing that, I know we talk about 11,000 more, trips, traffic.
And you're sharing Galveston with the shopping center.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be.
That's combined from the Hoadly Square, Maple Valley Road, and the Mosque Expanse, 11,000 people.
Bob, this is the revised proposal. So can I just quickly say, so one of the things we heard from Lost Creek neighborhood when we met was, you all didn't like sort of homes backing up to here, so we actually moved all those homes away. This is, created a significant buffer area. I think it's 180 feet or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. How much? 150 feet of trees, essentially, that are gonna be backing up to Ann and other folks back here. So we heard you and moved things around in order to do that. So that's one of the major things that came out of the meeting that we had with you all.
And can you also talk about the change of the unit type that you had right there as well?
Yeah, so these are all townhouses. They were higher units. These are all now not higher units, but there's no 2/2s, 2/2 units. These are duplex units that are sort of 28 foot wide. They are like a single family house, but just two single family houses together, essentially. And then these are all townhouse units that is a typical townhouse unit. They're 20 foot wide, 2-car garage townhouse units. All of our streets that you'll notice have on-street parking, and that's purposely done so that we overpark our streets so that we don't create a parking situation for other neighborhoods in the area. So all of these streets, even the streets within the community that has 2/2s will have on-street parking within them to create sort of a sense of place as you're driving through.
Are you saying the duplex?
And we got rid of the multifamily, so we got rid of the apartment units that were there, because we heard from you all that was something that people.
They're apartments now, right?
What was that?
They're apartments now, not, what was it called before?
No apartment.
No apartment.
So we're.
I know, but you had different terminology now.
Multifamily.
Yeah.
No, the 2/2s are still there.
On-
So the
on the-
2/2s are still on the front, those are the stacked townhouses. But we had 2 apartment buildings that were there, that because of the feedback that we heard, we removed the apartment buildings.
Are you saying the duplexes are 14 feet wide?
No,
For the
28 feet each.
Oh, okay.
So it'll look like a 56-foot wide house,
Okay.
but just has 2 houses.
What's going on with the ORFA, and also you were talking earlier about using Galveston, that other parcel that's above where that treaty area is on this map, that is already, in planning as well, for planning review, and all of that traffic from that whole area, that whole parcel is gonna be dumping out onto Galveston as well, so that might be something that.
So as I mentioned, that's why I just met with Mr. Breland and Mr. and Mrs. Breland last week, actually 2 weeks ago, to buy the strip from them here, so that we can widen this area. And we're already in discussions, and Carlos actually offered to help us speak with his neighbors, because we've been speaking with them for a couple of years about this, potentially add another lane there. Regarding the undisturbed.
I was talking about the large parcel that's above there.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about, because it touches Galveston, and in order to help contemplate that traffic as well, they're already talking about making more capacity on
I just
Galveston.
wanna make sure that everyone is here, maybe for the first time, they understand that light above where that bright green is, that whole, triangular, no, from him to your left.
A few
he's talking about- she's talking about the,
this.
Maple Grove.
That parcel
Yeah.
right now is in the planning stages with the
So
county.
they will have to do a traffic impact analysis and factor our traffic and the mosque's traffic as part of their traffic impact.
And so, again, about the ORPA.
But, so what you'll see here is the initial proposal had homes pushed up all the way to here. What we have proffered, or what we are proffering in this proposal, is that we will leave this area completely undisturbed. So all of the homes that are backing at, from the Lost Creek neighborhood here, all of this area remains undisturbed. So it will be outside our
It's
limits.
not being changed to MU3 as it was in the prior plan.
It will still be changed to MU3, but it will be proffered as undisturbed open space.
Yeah, no, but why not just sit here and do that?
Well,
Why not
well,
just
we
leave it
can-
as
but-
ORPA,
so-
which is what it was again. In fact, it was Supervisor Boddye who was the one who put that forward.
What did you want to say? That you
Well,
answered that
I mean,
last part?
we've already actually started discussions with the Northern Virginia
Conservation Trust.
Conservation Trust. We've reached out to figure out what it would take to put part of that property or that property under trust.
And the thing is, when Supervisor Boddye brought it forward about ORPA, which for those of you who may not understand the acronym, it stands for Occoquan Resource Protection Area, which was put in place to protect the wetlands in certain areas within the county that supply us with our groundwater. And there has not been a groundwater study done in this county for 31 years. And so what happens now when all of this disappears because we start building on everything all up and down the parkway, and the same people that you have wells and the same people who have county water, we're all drafting out of the same body of
So,
water.
ma'am, I hate to cut you off but you dominated a lot of the conversation. We hear from one more person before we wrap up. But to touch on that very quickly, you're right. I was the person who championed the ORPA designation, and also not but 3 weeks ago, I did have a directive put in for county staff for us to revive the groundwater study. So that will be happening as well. We will get a groundwater study done. To your point, was there any last questions? Yep.
I was just wondering if the proposed area is gonna be more houses or shopping or those grayed out spots?
This one,
Yeah, what is it?
I think it's townhouses or
Okay.
it's housing.
I didn't know it was.
Yeah.
I think it's housing.
It's proposed townhouses right now, but that project frankly has not even been shown to me yet. It's completely new, so that's obviously still very rough and subject to
And
change.
that developer just reached out to us. We're not that developer, and we've got to figure out where the road connections would be to make it sense, essentially.
Supervisor, it's 262 townhouses.
262?
Jackson.
Right, okay. Yeah. So,
When you say, pardon, undisturbed, no trail,
Yes.
honest to God, undisturbed.
So it's undisturbed. I don't, have we taken the trail network? I
We
know
took
they-
the
they
trail
were-
network off of the plan.
Yeah.
So
So-
to answer your question, the question was, do you, can you agree to undisturbed, no trails? And this revision that you see does not include a trail in the undisturbed area.
yeah. So, if you can see, the previous iteration, so the two boards next to each other on that side show that the previous iteration of the project had a trail network, a very small, modest, passive use trail network. What we heard from folks that live around there, that they don't want a trail network, they don't want people walking near their homes. So that was indeed taken out. So we're not about completely undisturbed open space, not subject to trails, no construction, anything like that. So that was the last question we have. We're gonna leave the
I
left.
have a question.
I just wanted to observe, we had a local health meeting January 25th, 2024. I thought it was very productive. We had a 4-page typewritten single-spaced agenda. And I tell a lot of the elements that we requested are being picked up here. We asked for wherever we could to have on-street parking. I see that happening. We asked for open space consideration in an environmental sensitive area. I see about an addition of about 7 acres, and I see a lot more sensitivity to that area. And a lot of other elements that were on that 4-page, single-spaced agenda are being addressed. So I just want, improvements are in the improvement. We have to work on that. And also, we did write a letter on the mosque expansion, and we did a lot of analysis back back in the day on the traffic. And I just wanted to compliment Said on the way he's looking at the increment of dispersing. I've studied queuing theory and I understand we still have a fire hose issue with Hoadly Road, but the sensitivity to the traffic pattern, particularly on Friday, is very commendable. I just want to say that I have seen more in-depth discussion coming out of Said's presentation than we had when we were struggling with the mosque. It's very good.
Thank you, Dr. Jack, I appreciate it, because that, again.
Those are observations.
Right, and I appreciate it, and that gets to the point, because I know, again, I hear that people feel like this has just been going on and people haven't been hurt or what have you, but there have been changes, and again, where we are in the process is, again, this most recent line of changes has not even been completely filed with county staff yet, so we're gonna keep doing it, Dr.
But I
Jack.
just want to say, we'll continue because we, no matter what happens in town plan, we have an effect on the Occoquan Reservoir. So the ORPA, we need to be good stewards here on the land. So whenever we have an opportunity, we should be picking up for best management practices, for stormwater, and we should be looking for opportunities to recharge the groundwater out of respect for the reservoir and also our residents that are on well and septic. So all of that, we need to be good neighbors as we develop that land, and we need to put the ORPA mentality on this as an overlay.
Sir,
To make
thank
it
you.
happen.
So I want to bring Matt, because we've actually had a discussion about this, and about, how we can do that both during construction and after construction, but please, go ahead, Matt.
Good evening, my name is Matt Marshall, I'm with LEC, with a civil engineer for the applicant. I think I've met with most of you over the last couple months. I know I just talked to Dr. Jack at length, we were comparing notes in terms of and how we're comparing notes with Dr. Jack about best practices for this project, given that it does have an encroachment into the ORPA. And things we can do and tools we have at our disposal. We've had a lot of success in and around with Occoquan in the past with other projects we've done in county center and otherwise, where we've had issues with sensitivity to stormwater. And I think overall, the overarching theme was we've had more successes than otherwise. And I think what you see here is a couple smart principles for smart growth, right? So what we're doing is we are pulling in, that's one of the very first things you'll see in the county's comprehensive plan. It talks about smart growth principles. How can we be best good stewards? Take your input and we reduce our footprint. It may not be to the extent yet that you all would like it to be, but we are listening. We are trying to do our very best to balance all the different participants in the process to find a balancing outcome. We are also using stormwater techniques that are unique and beneficial. So we have underground stormwater management. Someone referred to them as cisterns. So yes, they are kind of like cisterns. We are looking at potentially recharging the groundwater in places. We have a soil study done. There were 20 borings done to a depth of 20 feet throughout the property. We have analyzed the borings. We see opportunities potentially for use of infiltration practices between elevations of 5 feet below grade to roughly 18 feet below grade. And where there opportunities exist, we will use infiltration practices. If they cannot be utilized, we'll use other methodologies such as bioretention, right? Again, it is not this one solution fits all type of exercise here. We're using a multi-pronged kind of approach to address all the concerns from a water quality standpoint, knowing that the sensitivity within the Occoquan Reservoir. One last thing, when you look at the analysis in terms of what the minimum state and county code requirement is for water quality, we are exceeding them. We are not buying nutrient credits. We are not bending corners here. We're not taking shortcuts. We are actually going to go above and beyond what the minimum requirement is for the county. Again, we haven't even gotten to that in terms of what the proffer statements could be or what it should look like. But those are the types of commitments that we've worked previously with Dr. Jack at LOCA to make sure that they get proffered and that we can then execute them in the built environment.
We want the performance standards. Thank you.
If I may ask you, the thing is that you talked about the ground.
Sorry, Dalton had his hand up first.
Okay.
Dalton.
So my question is, how can we be serious? So we're talking a lot about water. How can we be serious about water? We haven't done water stuff. We don't know if the groundwater's half empty, if it's 3/4 full, or what have. And we're flying with blindfolds on. So I think this can be objectively somewhat disingenuous to make these statements about the water. We have no definitive idea of the condition of our groundwater.
I'd like to just make one statement about it being disingenuous. I would argue that our analysis is not disingenuous. It's actually objective to the nth degree. This study that was done by this third party drilled 10 to 20 holes at depths of 20 feet, and when they actually encountered no groundwater in those depths at any level. So when we looked at your impact on your wells in terms of how we're changing the topography and the things that we have opportunities to both enhance and protect you all, we can say objectively that we won't have an impact. Now, I can't speak to the overall county's hydrologic study or hydrogeologic study that Supervisor Boddye is conducting. That's a different discussion. Those are depths that we won't be touching. Those could be 100 feet other places, and I can't speak to that. But in terms of our analysis, in terms of what we're doing, in terms of making sure we have the proper safeguards in place, we have done those things.
Sorry, I'm gonna ask a question. I tried to raise my hand. Last time I do live in Lost Creek, and I apologize to folks who don't because it's been really focused on our community, and that's not everyone's impact. But you specifically said to me, there's absolutely no impact on your well. Can I have that information? I mean, can I access that report or wherever you got it from? Because, you know, it's a huge concern.
Our
I just wanna know where
geotechnical,
y'all have that
so
from.
what Matt's referring to is we do geotechnical studies where we bring a geotechnical engineer, they drill borings,
Okay.
and we're happy to share with you.
I would love, that's what I
Yeah.
wanna see. I would love to see that information.
Happy.
Because it's scary. I mean, that's a scary
Yeah,
piece
so,
for me.
so if you just email one of our team members, I'll send it to Bob. How about that?
That'd be fabulous.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
will send it to Bob, maybe tomorrow.
Can you define impact? Because I'm sitting here, there's many different impacts on my water. You know, loss of water, no water, how about contamination? You can't just drill a hole and say that this new neighborhood who sprays their yards every day with all kinds of different, you know, chemicals, it's not gonna impact my well water. Are you saying that?
So,
Right, yeah.
no one understood.
Drilling a hole doesn't tell you. I've already run out of water in my neighborhood before. My neighbor has to have our wells. And we're all on the same water table.
Sure. So as we wrap this up, I get that there's a lot more questions still surrounding traffic and now water. And ma'am, I apologize, but
I've been asked questions for a while, so.
Raised
Yeah.
one vicious thing, which is that, you know, you were saying that your goal is to safeguard the water supply and that sort of thing, and I can understand and appreciate you're talking about just that one particular project, but the groundwater situation is much deeper than that, number one. Number two, if you're so concerned about it, why are you willing to change the ORPA designation to MU3, which is mixed use 3? And that is totally different, big problem.
so the last thing I'll say to that is, as Safe mentioned earlier, if you're talking about putting a conservation easement on what 75% of what the ORPA is currently, as you know, ma'am, a conservation easement is actually even a lot more protective and restrictive than a land use designation. So it can be MU3 all day, but if there's an actual conservation easement in place which restricts the kind of development you could even put there, to me, that's the goal.
So I change it to MU3 if it doesn't make any difference.
So that will be analyzed as part of staff's analysis. Again, they requested it get done, we initiated, but if county staff comes back and say, hey, no, we will only have this part of it MU3 and the rest parks and open space or ORPA still or whatever it is, we will still listen to staff's recommendations.
So you're telling me that staff told you that it should be taken out of ORPA and put
I didn't
in
say
MU3?
that, ma'am. I did not say that at all.
Well,
I
it
just said the
didn't come from
process.
county, it came from the developer.
Sure, but it's also up to the county staff to say whether or not they recommend that being done or not. We're not even that part of the process yet. So it being changed can or cannot happen. It's not a done deal, is what I'm saying.
Supervisor Boddye?
Yes.
Actually, environmental management has filed a report on the project, and they are recommending that it be left in board.
Sure.
So, but watershed management is only one of the recommending agencies, and
But
as
they're the
we-
experts in watershed.
But they're only one of the recommending agencies. They're also one of the agencies that reviewed the application for initiation of the comprehensive plan amendment.
Right.
And at that time, they were part of that application that county staff suggested
That's
should be
right.
recommended as part of that. So once you have the initiation, there's additional information that's provided as part of your comprehensive
Sure,
plan
sure.
before staff as a whole, including watershed management, makes their recommendation.
Understood. No,
So
they made
watershed
the
management
recommendation
was
on
making a
CPA.
recommendation based on a first submission that does not have the additional information pertaining to the
I was
comprehensive
just
plan
commenting
amendment.
that they made their recommendation on the CPA.
Sure.
In March, I think.
Thank you.
And again, we're still obviously then at that point, it'll go to the planning commission at some point down the line, and they'll say whether or not they want it removed based on their recommendations. It'll also come to us. So that's still a very fluid situation with that. It's not a done deal on the entire thing staying in MU3, if you're, that's your
Because
concern.
the watershed gave a very dismal report of this project.
Sure. So-
It seems as though now the scenario seems to be that you didn't like.
Understood, ma'am. We did want to give folks some more time to spend at the boards, so if they had any final granular questions and say.
One last thing, Supervisor Boddye, I think what's important is, we are listening. We are trying to make changes based on what we're hearing. This is still a work in progress. We hear you. And if there are other ideas, we're happy to hear them. We're happy to think about how we can make this a better project, understanding that there is an impact. So please do continue to engage with us. We will continue to try to figure out how do we, mitigate any impact to the communities around, as well as figure out how to make this a better project.
We'll go to the board.
Yep,
Back
thank
to
you
the
so
board.
much, everyone. Yeah, we're gonna have another 10, 15 minutes with the boards.
Before it goes to